In this episode, we're talking all about qualities of an awesome dad. I'm going to share a few things that might surprise you and tell you why some of the qualities that you might have in mind might not be as important as you think they are. Let's get into it. If you think being a dad is filled with rewards, challenges, or headaches, and you keep pushing forward because you know this is the most important job you're ever going to do, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dad's All In podcast. Hey, fellow dad. Thanks for checking out the premiere of the Dad's All In podcast. What makes an awesome dad? You probably have some ideas generating in your head. I've got plenty in mind. And some of our ideas might be similar and some might be different. My perspective may be a little bit different than many. Not just because of being a dad of 3 and my kids have some challenges they work through, but also because I've got a ton of experience working with kids, everything from pre-K all the way to 12th grade in a wide variety of ways. So I'm going to get into the qualities that I think make an awesome dad, and you can feel free to agree or disagree with me, and I'd love to hear your feedback. I'll talk more about that later on in this episode. So there's one that's a given that we probably all can just kind of, we can all agree on for sure. I'm not even listing it because it's the first thing that pops up. It's that dads need to be protective and keep their families safe. That goes back to like the Stone Age or like the days of the caveman, right? You got to protect your family. So that's a given. We are going beyond that, a little bit deeper than that level. That's just surface level stuff, right? But before I get into the 6 things that I want to share with you of just the main qualities that like pop off the top for me when I think about what makes an awesome dad, I want to share with you some things that might be on your list, but I think they're more luxury skills. These are like things that a lot of fathers think they need to be, but they don't necessarily need to be these to be an awesome dad. First thing, there is this myth that you got to be jacked up, dude. Like you got to be at the gym, bossing the bench press on a daily basis, and you've got to be huge, hulking, and just muscles popping out of your neck and everywhere else. Not true. Although, hey, listen, I'd love to be big and jacked, but I am not, nor will I ever be. The good news is if you're not, you don't have to be jacked to be a good dad. It kind of goes into the whole protection and security and safety idea. Like the bigger you are, the better you are at protecting your family. And maybe there's some truth to that, but here's what I know. You can be 5'6" and be a martial artist and be better at taking care of your family physically than somebody who's 6'2" and weighs 250 pounds and is, yoked to the gills. My point is that it's a great luxury to have if you're a big dude, but it's a luxury skill. It's a luxury quality. You don't have to have that to be a good dad. So if you are like many of us, not huge, the good news is you don't need that to be an awesome dad. If you are huge, congratulations. That's a great luxury quality to have. There's a couple more here. But one I would say is you don't have to be handy. However, that is certainly a luxury skill that many people would love to have, myself included. I've come a long way, but I would definitely not say that I'm handy in any stretch of the imagination. The good news is you don't have to be handy to be a good dad. Will it make your family life easier when something breaks and you've got to fix it? Probably. But you could also call somebody to help. I call my father-in-law, who is very handy and can do everything from electrical work to plumbing basics to carpentry and mechanical work as well. So he is kind of my go-to. So you can get away without being handy and still be a good dad. And even if you don't know somebody, just give somebody you can call. Yeah, you got to pay, and it hurts a little bit on the wallet, but you can still get away with it. So you don't have to be handy to be a good dad. That's another myth. And the last one I want to share is you don't have to have a lot of money, meaning you don't have to be rich. You don't have to be driving some Hummer or some classy looking Tesla or a sports car. You don't have to have a vehicle like that to be a good dad. Now I get it. Your kid's out at soccer practice, or maybe you're rolling up to softball practice and you're like, this dad rolls up in his Lincoln Navigator and you're like, man, that dude's got it all together. Chances are he probably doesn't, but he looks good and looks stylish rolling up, right? Here's the good news. You do not have to be rich or rolling up in a Rolls Royce to be a good dad. So there's 3 things that I would tell you are luxury qualities, luxury skill sets. You do not need to be rich, you do not have to be handy, and you do not have to be jacked up to the nines. Okay? So let's get those out of the way first. And now let's dive into the 6 qualities that I think make up an awesome dad. And I think you'll agree with some of these, and you might be surprised with some others. The first 2 are you hear these pretty commonly, but they're super important. Number 1, dad's got to be active to the best of your ability. And when I say active, it means you got to be willing to show up. Now, when I say to the best of your ability, it kind of depends on your situation. If you're working a 9 to 5, you've got time at night to run your kids to practice. If you're in the military, by the way, shout out to anybody who serves in the armed forces. If you're in the military, your schedule is entirely different. You may be home for, a month block and then you're gone and you're deployed. Or another example would be, I know a pilot and his schedule is all over the place. So he's home for a week, gone for a week, and it kind of rotates like that. So this is definitely the number 1 and number 2 on my list are dependent on your situations. Don't think I'm in the army, I'm away from my family, I can't be a good dad because I can't be active. Well, you can be active in your own way. I'll talk about that in a second. But in general, awesome dads are active because they show up. And that could be sports, it could be, taking them to instrument lessons or Boy Scouts, you get the idea. Whatever it is. Could it actually even be, doctor appointments? Are you showing up for doctor appointments? Here's a good one. This is near and dear to my heart because I spent tons of years working with kids at school. If you can make it to the school, conferences and meetings at school or the functions at school, that makes a difference too. Being active, trying to show up as much as you can. Now, if your schedule's a little out of whack, I've got some friends who are in law enforcement, and sometimes they're working nights, sometimes they're on call, like things get a little crazy. Can you show up in your own way to the best of your ability? In other words, with the time you have available. And if you're deployed, then maybe you've got very limited time. Maybe for you being active is touching base with your kids every few days on, a Zoom call or something. To the best of your ability, you're showing up. Number 2, we'll take this one step beyond active. Is probably, even if you're active, great, check that box off your list, but can you be present? In other words, can you actually be there, not just physically, but go a step further? You're there for your kids emotionally, and you're working with them, or you're there for them, all those things, right? You're active because you're at your child's function, whatever it is. But are you actually there? Or are you scrolling through your phone and you're looking up whatever and you're not really involved with a conversation, or you're not really involved in whatever it is that you need to do? Now, I'm not saying you're at soccer practice, you can't roll your phone out and check out a few things that are happening. Check your emails from work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, with the moments that you have, are you there with your kid? Are you throwing the ball around in the front yard? If you like gaming, are you gaming with your kid? Or are you sitting in the room together and they're gaming and you're on your phone? Or you're gaming and they're doing their homework? Are you present with them is what I'm getting at. So first is, are you active? 2, are you present in the moment, knowing that you're not going to give your kid 100% of your time, but the time that you have available to be an active dad, can you also be there, be present? There are a lot of dads who struggle with the phone, or maybe it's fantasy football is just hugely important. And we'll talk about this more in a minute in another quality of dads. If I think fantasy football or fantasy baseball is just enormously important to me, am I losing some time with that I could be more present with my kid because I kind of have my priorities are a little bit out of whack, right? So be present as much as you can. Number 3, be supportive. Now, there is a myth that you can't be a supportive dad because you got to be tough. You got to make sure they know you mean business and you're bringing the heat, and they need to know that you're the authoritarian figure in this house and you're in charge. So don't tell me about things that they're complaining about. Don't tell me about the things you're worried about because I'm just too tough and I'm a dad that's in charge. I got news for you. You may think that's a quality of a great dad, and don't get me wrong, there are times when you got to be rigid as a dad. That's 100% true. But the challenges that kids face now are just far more intense than the challenges that you and I faced when we were kids. We now have a whole lot more challenges in society, in school, just in life in general, socially, than kids had previously. And because of that, we've got to be supportive. And what does that mean? That means maybe we listen to our kids a little bit more than previous generation dads did. If you previously, your view of your dad was, when I came home, he really didn't talk to me much, but wow, he knew that he was in charge of discipline in our house, and I knew he was in charge, and that's your view of your dad. I'm not telling you that back then that he was a poor dad. What I'm telling you is now we got to evolve a little bit further because there's so many kids who need more help. And so when I say kids, that could be a 4-year-old, that could be a 18-year-old. So we have to be able to listen to them. We have to encourage them. In an episode coming up, I'm going to spend a whole episode about the importance of praising your kid and building them up. A lot of the work I've done for years has been with kids who have challenges. And it may surprise you to know that the number of kids who have challenges is through the roof. And when I say challenges, that could be a kid with a disability, but it could also be a kid who's struggling socially, emotionally. Anxiety is rampant with kids. Confidence. You talk about an epidemic. The number of kids who are struggling with confidence is through the roof. And that is not just females. That is males as well. And sometimes your kids will put on a show for you, but inside, internally, they're like, I don't feel like I can do any of this. So there are all kinds of reasons why you need to be encouraging and uplifting and build your kids up and listen to them. But you just got to be supportive. And if that's something you're not great at, join the club, man. There's not a lot of dudes out there who are like, I'm really good at talking about my feelings and listening to my kids, talk about the things that they're upset about or worried about. Most of us are not like hot-wired that way, but you can get better at it. Nobody says you got to be perfect, and nobody says you've got to be a therapist and have your kids sit on the couch and just spill out all their emotions. However, you do have to be a little bit more willing to listen and be encouraging and build them up. If that's something that doesn't come easy to you, it's understandable. My wife used to joke, so in case you don't know, I taught at the elementary level for 20 years. I used to say at my early days teaching, I was never good at, like, when a lot of these kids had baggage and they had stuff and they needed somebody to confide in who they could trust. And a lot of times that was me. And I would pull a kid aside and be like, man, what's going on today? What's going on with you? You're just not yourself. And they would just let it go. And so I never really knew how to deal with that most of the time. Like sometimes something happened on the bus, something happened at home. I would just sit back and listen and then be like, here, you want a lollipop? I didn't know how to fix it. And that's kind of my point. You may not know how to fix the problems. And if you're like me, I want to fix stuff. Even though I'm not handy, I still have that like part of me as a dad that wants to fix the problems for my kids. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we just got to listen. And then maybe we offer some advice and we work from there. So again, be supportive. That's something that a lot of us got to work on. And 4, 5, and 6 is something that's probably going to make some of you feel a little uncomfortable as well. Number 4 is really important. And this comes easier for some dads than others. You could say it's generational, but it's really more down to the individual. Some dads, they get this. And some dads, they got to work on this. So number 4, the fourth quality of an awesome dad is they're willing to sacrifice. Now, that doesn't mean sacrifice everything, right? You do not have to you don't have to be Mother Teresa and just give everything away in your life. But you do have to understand, in this role, you got to hit a point as a dad where you're giving more to them than you are to yourself. What happens in like the phases of being a man? And don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert on this. I'm a dad, but I'm also, I've got a lot of experience working with kids, whether it be in education, but also in coaching and mentoring and a variety of things. So before you have kids, it's you. You're taking care of yourself, right? You can be as egocentric as you want to. You're like, man, it is all about me. I want to go to a concert, I'm going to a concert. I want to go to a game, I'm going to a game. If I want to go do some art on my own time and spend some time doing that, or I want to game for hours on end and just veg and do whatever, it's all good. However, once you get to the point where now you have a human to take care of, that changes some. It may not change completely. I'm not telling you can't go to a game, you can't go to a concert. What I am telling you is you've got to put this young person before yourself now. And so in some cases, that means sacrificing. I'm not going here today because I've got to make sure that I'm available to take my kid to school. Or I'm not going to be able to do an hour of gaming this afternoon because I've got to make sure that I help my kid with homework. There's sacrifices that are involved. You got to understand your role is super important. This will lead into the next one in just a minute, and you'll see why. But the idea here is you have to be willing to put them before yourself. And for a lot of dads, this is a really difficult challenge. I'll give you an example of something I struggled with. My son is now, as an 18-year-old, a karate instructor. And I'm super proud of how far he's come, as he's a second-degree black belt. However, years ago when he started karate, just a young kid, every fall he'd have this big regional tournament, and it soaked up a whole weekend, which meant that Saturday in October was always filled. Well, you know what I love on Saturday in October? College football. I love college football. Specifically, I'm a Penn State fan, so it doesn't matter if you're a Penn State fan or any other fan. That is my jam. I love college football. I always have. And it would almost always, the first couple years, land on like the most important game of the season, which, if you're a Penn State fan, it's when you play Ohio State, or maybe it's you play Michigan. It just, for the first couple of years, that would be the case. I was never lucky enough to fall on like a date when Penn State was going to play Idaho, or a team when it's not going to matter. I'll just tape it and watch it later. So I'm left with this choice. Do I stay in the hotel room and watch the game, or do I go watch my kid compete? Well, you got to sacrifice. And that was a hard pill to swallow, man. I'm telling you, I would have to record it, and then I would try to not hear about what happened. I would stay off my phone, and then I'd go back and watch it later, hoping I didn't know the result. And you don't want to do that, but if you're a hardcore sports fan, sometimes that's the sacrifice you got to make, specifically when you're a dad. So that's something I've gotten better at. I'm still not perfect. I know I've already looked at the schedule for October. I know the game that I'm going to have to just swallow my pride and be like, I got to tape that. because same thing. I'm going to watch my son compete, and because of that, I'm going to sacrifice something that I would like to be able to do. It is hard for young dads especially. You get better at it. It all comes down to priorities. And here's a quick trick that I would tell myself when I got to make decisions. Do I want to do something for me or do I want to do something for my kid? Ask yourself, after the event, whatever it is, or events, or whatever it is that takes place, what would you feel worse about? Missing this for my kid, or missing this, the example I have, sporting event, or missing this time gaming, or whatever? What are you going to feel worse about, like guilty about? It's going to be missing stuff for your kid. So do what you can to sacrifice. If that means recording on the DVR so you can watch it later, do that. There are times you've got to sacrifice. You do not have to sacrifice everything in your life for your kids, but you do need to know when you become a dad, it's super important they come first. And that's hard, but it's important. It means you're out there baking in the sun while your daughter is in the shade. It means you're giving your daughter the umbrella while you walk in the rain. It means you are carrying all of the family stuff like a pack mule into the hotel while your kids are upstairs jumping on the beds because they're excited about vacation. You sacrifice as a dad. It's hard because you don't get a lot. There's not a lot of people giving you pats on the back. Not usually how it works. But the most important thing is you understand, if you want to be an awesome dad, we'll never get there, but we keep trying. You want to be an awesome dad, then try to sacrifice as much as you can without giving your full self away, if that makes sense. I said this one leads into the fifth one because number 5 is being a role model. One thing I learned from my dad was, my goodness, if he had a quality that was very impressive to me and set a big impression on me, it was that he was willing to sacrifice everything. I'm not sure you got to go to that extent like my father did, but that was definitely something he would do. Now, being a role model for your kid, as hard as this is for some dads to swallow, you're a hero. You are a leader. And so I said some of these are a little difficult for some people to swallow, but your role model, they are watching you. Actions speak louder than words. I'm sure you've heard that quote before. It's 100% true, right? You can tell kids to do something till you're blue in the face, and they might do it sometimes, but if you want to make a bigger impression, your actions line up with what you're saying. That's how you're a role model. It's how you become. It's good leadership skills in general, but if you're going to be a role model, which you are, like it or lump it, you're a role model. Your kids are watching you. And so they're watching you through the good. They're watching you through the bad. You do not have to be perfect. And that leads into number 6, which we'll get to in a second. But do understand, like it or not, they're watching you for guidance. They're watching you as a person they look up to. And if you're a person who's not making good choices in your life, you're a person who's not doing some of the other things I've listed on this list, no, they're going to know it. And they're going to start to wonder, is that what being a dad's all about? And the answer to that is no. You want to be a role model. Doesn't mean you need to be perfect. It means you got to try to be a decent human to the best of your ability. Know they're watching you. The best example I can give you is this. For whatever reason, I have always been a person who opens doors for others. And I mean literally. I do enjoy opening, invisible doors for others to help them, but I'm talking in this case about like literal doors. Going into a store, I don't know, I've always just opened doors. Yes, for ladies, but also older folks and whoever's behind me in general. Dudes, it doesn't matter. Kids, whoever. I just open doors. And I didn't even realize this. I've never mentioned this to my son, and I think he was about 3 years old. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were walking into a Bob Evans. It was our family heading in for, I think, breakfast. And I opened the door, and my son, kind of put his back into the door. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he just pointed for me to go inside. And what I didn't realize at the time was there were people behind us, and he was holding the door for the people behind us. You see, I never told him to do that. He did it because he was watching. I hadn't really thought about it much, but they are watching you. You are a role model, whether you want to be or not. So the sooner you can get on that bandwagon, the better off your kids are going to be. I can't tell you how many kids that I worked with through the years were disappointed in the role models in their lives. I'm going to tell you, my first year teaching, a long time ago, I was a 5th grade teacher. In that year, this is heartbreaking, but it's 100% true. In that year, there was 2 fathers that got arrested and a 3rd father who committed suicide. And I can't tell you the horrific conversations I had to have with these kids because of the junk that they had to go through and the trauma that they were going through because their father figures in their lives, well, they just weren't being good role models. We'll just say that. So nobody says you got to be perfect, and that leads into number 6, but you just try the best you can. And number 6 is you're going to fail. You're going to fail, but you need to fail forward. You're going to screw up things. You're going to try something. It's not going to go off well. The question is, what do you do after? That's what makes an awesome dad, because even awesome dads screw up. It is 100% true. But what do you do after? Do you learn from it, or do you just keep making the same mistakes over and over again? So fail, but fail forward. Have some kind of growth mindset, meaning give yourself some grace. Understand that you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, but what are you going to do to learn from it? For example, this is not one of my prouder moments, but I'll share this with you. I told you I have my son. I also have twin daughters who are now 13, but at the time, I think one daughter was 5. Well, both of them were 5, they're twins. But one daughter was sick, she was 5, and my son was sick with the same thing, and they had the same medicine, but they had different dosage amounts, right? Because she was just a little tiny thing, not that my son is a huge human, but he was certainly bigger being 5 years older. So dad was in charge of doling out the medicine that night. I accidentally switched the pills to each of my kids. So my son got less than what he was supposed to. My daughter got more. And I remember right after it happened, they went off to bed and I thought, oh my Lord, I just gave my daughter more medicine than what she was supposed to get. That was scary. I actually called like a hotline to make sure she was going to be okay. And they were like, yeah, just monitor her. She'll probably be fine. It's just a little bit more dosage. It's not a huge amount. But at that moment, I thought to myself, I can never do this again. How would I live with myself if I had given my daughter too much medicine and we went to the emergency room because of it, or she got sick or worse? So knock on wood, I still to this day have not made that mistake again because I'm trying to fail forward, meaning I'm going to learn from that mistake, knowing I'm not going to be perfect. Don't crush myself internally to the point where I say I'm a loser, I just can't do anything right. No, that can't be the case. You're a human. You humans make mistakes, man. But we try to learn and we try to fail forward. So to repeat for you, the 6 qualities of awesome dads, in my opinion: be active when you're active, be present in the moment, be present for your kids, support them by encouraging them and listening. Know that you're going to have to sacrifice sometimes, man. That's not easy. Be a role model to the best of your ability because you're a hero to those kids. Whether you like it or not, you're a leader and they're looking at you for some guidance. And you're going to fail. You're going to screw up. But fail forward. Grow as you go through being a dad. And it is an awesome gig. But my goodness, it comes with challenges. I will never tell you that being a dad is easy, right? My wife and I, we have been through some serious stuff with our kids. And in an episode coming down the line, I'll share more about the details and the challenges that we've gone through. But I'm just telling you, it's not easy. But wow, it's amazing. And here's the kicker. It's the most important job we will ever do. Period. End of discussion. And I get it. There are some really important jobs out there. But nothing is more important in this life than helping our kids become better humans than we are and helping our kids become successful in life. So what do you think? Those are my 6. I know there are plenty of other amazing qualities that make awesome dads. I'd love to hear what you think. If you're like, dude, you are off your rocker, I'm fine with that too. I would love to hear from you. What you can do is send me an email, dadsallinpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. You could also give me some questions that you want me to answer in upcoming episodes. So as we move through some of these episodes in the future, I want to just answer some questions. I already have some ideas laid out, but I want to hear from you. It'll make it even more meaningful. What are some questions you have that you want some answers to? I don't have all the answers, but maybe I've got a little bit of advice, a little bit of guidance I can give you. It's my hope on this podcast to help you from my best ability, and that means give you advice, but I'm also going to be straight with you. I'm going to tell you when things are challenging, and I'm going to share some of the things that I've screwed up and some of the funny things that we've gone through as a family, just so that you know you're not alone when you do it too. I appreciate you listening to this premiere episode. I hope you come back and check out the rest as we move forward. If you thought this was pretty okay and you enjoyed this content, please do me a favor, follow and subscribe. I hate saying that like pitch, but I'll be honest with you, what I've learned is that the more you all do it as listeners, the more likely this content will get put out to other dads who need it. So just remember, in order to be a dad who's all in, you do not have to be perfect. You're going to fail. Just try to fail forward. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for sticking around. If you got any questions you want answered on the show, or you just want some feedback or want to share some ideas, shoot me an email, dadsallinpodcast@gmail.com, or send me a DM on any of the socials @rechargedfamily. Thanks for listening.